Phil and Will are back. Finale predictions episode. Season 30 is coming to an end Wednesday night, and it might not be as crazy as we'd all hoped at the beginning, but last week gave us some hope. So maybe Carolyn can pull something out. But we're just here to say what we think the order of finish is going to be, go through some scenarios, and to see if there's any way Mike can actually lose the game.
Yeah, I mean, let's break down. We'll break down everything, really. We can get into jury votes, get into different final threes. Is there any potential of a final two? I think everyone is just kind of assuming, and you know this because why?
I just think if they go into a finale with 5 people, it's almost a guarantee that there's a final 3, and they haven't played up that there might be a final 2. And normally when there's a final 2, somebody's talking about it. Like Spencer was talking about it in Cagayan.
No, that was during the finale, though. That's when Jeff didn't say. That was after they got down to 4, and Jeff says a shot to plead your case, and Spencer didn't hear that. And that was the tip-off. It's still either way, because if we have a final 3, it's 8-person jury, which totally makes sense. And then if we're going to go to final 2, a 9-person jury, that totally makes sense too, because that's an odd number. And then 8 obviously is a perfect number for 3 people to eliminate a 3-way tie. So I'm not saying I think it's final 2, but do we need to kind of take into that account predict those scenarios, do you think?
I honestly don't think we do. I'm looking up the Cagayan thing right now.
I mean, we knew before going into the finale because they said in the trailer 3 tribal councils, and that totally gave it away.
No, because Trish got voted out in the episode before.
I just remember we knew going into the finale that it was the final 2. We don't.
Yeah, I know. They had 4 people in the finale of Cagayan. Normally they have 5 these days. So only having 4 people kind of tipped us off too, because you kind of knew that it was just going to be a final 2 then, because they still I guess you said 3 tribal councils. It was they had to vote off one person, vote off a second person, and then have the final tribal. And they always have 3 tribals, but when they said that and there were only 4 people going into the finale, that's how we knew.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are you saying we've never gone from 5 to 2 in a finale?
If you don't take into account Redemption Island, no, I don't think we have.
Okay, so it's a final 3. I was just maybe because the jury numbers do work out. It's not like there would be an even number.
No, it's worth bringing up. I just don't. Maybe I think that they've started to do that now, where the 12th place person doesn't really make the jury. I know it didn't happen last year with Julie. In Cagayan, I think it happened. Sarah was 11th. Yeah, Sarah was 11th. So if I feel like they're kind of cutting out, they used to have the 12th place person make the jury, but I think they're cutting that out just in case somebody gets injured down the line and they have to force it to be a final 2 or something. So I think they're kind of taking that into account a little bit now. But I don't think that there's any way that it's a final 2 this year.
Okay. Let's assume a final 3. If it's a final 2, yeah, it will be surprising. I just want to include that as a possibility. Let's run down just 1 to 5, I guess. This is our last segment of Power Rankings. I can't beat Phil. Phil's beating me. I still think I did okay. I pretty much had that one bad week with Max, and besides that, it was pretty close. So I'll start, I guess, here. Number 1, I have Mike, even though he's not in a good position. There's a very good chance he wins both immunities and then wins unanimously, or all but 1 vote, so that like Will doesn't get second place or something like that. I got Mike at 1. Phil, who do you got at 1?
Well, I actually think that there's 3 positions here that I'm completely 100% confident on, and maybe 99.9% confident on. This is the place that these people are going to finish. The only positions that I think could swap are 2nd and 4th. So at first I have Mike, because I think that it's like we've been saying for the whole time it's a foregone conclusion Mike's going to win. Last week, Carolyn kind of showed that she could be a threat to win, but I don't see how the final 3 is Will, Sierra, and Rodney. I don't see how either Mike or Carolyn's not in the final 3. I think Mike's going to win immunity at final 5. Carolyn's going to go home, and I think Mike's going to finish 1st, and Carolyn's going to finish 5th. So those are, I got my first and my last right there. I think Carolyn's only going to be in the episode for like a half hour this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have Carolyn at 5 as well, and then I have Sierra at 4, Will at 3, and Rodney at 2.
Okay, so I have Will at 3 because I think Will is definitely going to the final, and I think that he's going to be the GOAT who gets no votes, and people make sure he gets 3rd. I could see Shireen voting for whoever is sitting there with Mike just to give them the votes to beat out Will. Sierra and Rodney are the ones I'm a little wishy-washy on, because I could see Sierra being like a quiet person who makes it to the end. And the way they played up the whole Rodney versus Mike thing, I could also see it being Mike versus Rodney just at the final tribal, and Rodney gets second place. But I don't know. Let's say Mike wins immunity at Final Four. Does he take Rodney or does he take Sierra?
I think you take Rodney, right? I think it's pretty easy.
You would think, but he also, I mean, I know he dislikes Rodney, or not so much dislikes him, but at that point, I think Mike's smart enough. I'm just curious if he does take Rodney, because I'm sure Will would never vote Rodney out. So
I say, yeah, Will's going to vote Sierra, Rodney's going to vote Sierra. And so all Mike could really do is give Sierra a possibility at a tie and a fire making. And that's all Mike could really help her out with. And I don't even think it's really worth it, because it's like, sure, you're giving someone a shot to make fire and tie someone that you probably don't want to go against anyway. I think he can beat anybody, though, and I think he knows that. So maybe they'll play up his honor card. You know what? You know, like what Sugar did. Remember Sugar, like, didn't she, like, give Maddie a chance or something? I forget what happened exactly in Gabon.
She gave Bob a chance.
She gave Bob a chance. So he was, like, going home for sure. And then she's like, you know what? I'm going to give him – I'll force a tie here so I can leave it, you know, to the fire. You leave it to fate, kind of.
Yeah, and then poor Maddie has to go against Boy Scout Bob, and of course Boy Scout Bob's going to win that challenge. Like, there was no way he wasn't. But in this situation, Sierra versus Rodney in a fire-making challenge could possibly be one of the most entertaining things ever. That could be like the Cook Islands one. That would be excellent.
I mean, Rodney's not going to win a fire-making contest.
That's why I think it would be funny. Remember in Cook Islands, they were giving Becky and Sundra matches, and they still couldn't light the freaking fire?
They had Flint for like a half hour, and then, Jeff's like, all right, matches.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was that. I mean, I'm just going to, you know, for argument's sake, I'm going to put Sierra at 2 and Rodney at 4, although I do think your reasoning makes more sense. I just had Sierra at 2 beforehand. I think that the two of them are interchangeable. I think first, third, and fifth are pretty much locked up right now. Unless Carolyn,
I don't think it's locked up, but it's definitely, if you're making any sort of prediction on this, or you're going to bet any money on this at all, that's what you have to think. You have to think that that's the way it's going to go down. Let's talk about, like, what do you want to see out of this finale? What's the most satisfying way for this season to end for you?
I would like, somehow, I know it's not going to happen, but I would love to see a Mike, Rodney, Carolyn Final 3. I know it's not going to happen, because I know that out of Mike and Carolyn, whoever loses immunity at the Final 5 is going home at Final 5. But I would love to see a Mike, Rodney, Carolyn Final 3, because I think that would be a really good Final 3, and all three of them could make arguments for why they should win the game. Like, I know Rodney kind of sucked at – well, he has completely sucked at all the challenges, but everything kind of went his way this game, and everything that he said was going to happen, it sort of happened. I mean, he was a lot of talk, but he did put into motion a plan to get his alliance down to the end. And if Mike hadn't won all these immunities, he would have had the final 6, and he probably would have had the 4 in the group of 6. But Mike keeps winning immunity, and he can't do anything about it. And then Carolyn's crazy idol play. You know, so it's really – Rodney didn't play a bad game. I think Carolyn – with that move last week, could make an argument. I mean, she played a really low-key, under-the-radar game, I feel like, her and Tyler. And then you have Mike, who, how could you not – like, what does Mike really have to say? I mean, everybody's seen it. So I think that would be the best Final 3.
Yeah, that would be – I mean, I'd love to see Rodney in front of a jury. You know, that would be fun. And then, like you said, I mean, Carolyn and Mike have done the most. They are the front runners at this point. Mike much more than Carolyn. What I want from this finale is – I want Mike to lose immunity. One of them. It could be at 4, could be at 5. Either one. He loses immunity and somehow still survives. That's what I want to see. Because I think he's winning, and I want to see him win. I think he'd be a good winner. But there's something about winning immunity all the way to the end that just doesn't feel right. You know? It's kind of like, man, because when we think about Survivor and we talk so much about it, we love the strategy, we love the votes, we love the lies, the persuasion, the moves, as we say. We don't really think about challenges all that much. I mean, we talk about them for a little bit, like, oh, that was a cool challenge, but yeah, like, do we really want someone that has just literally won all the immunities and gone? Because that's impressive and that's cool, but that's not what we like. It's not as interesting.
It's kind of what happened with Colby back in Australia. I mean, he won all the immunities and then he still lost, like because Tina was just like played a better social game and everything like that. And it's kind of my argument with Joe earlier in this season, where it was like you were saying at one of the episodes, I forget which one it was. You were like Joe for MVP, and I was like, yeah, Joe won immunity, Joe won reward, but I want to see Joe lose a challenge and still somehow stay, because that is when you're really like a good Survivor player. Like I want to see somebody who can lose a challenge when they're the number one threat and somehow turn the tides and stay in the game. And if Mike could do that at Final 5 or 4 and still go to the end and win it, I mean, that would be a much more powerful argument, for him to be one of the better winners that this show's ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I had Joe on my fantasy team. I had to campaign for him. So if I said stuff about, the MVP is hard campaigning there too.
Yeah.
But I mean, when someone does win individual immunity and individual reward, hard not to give them MVP. But I hear what you're saying, and I think Mike is just if he literally, how many immunities will he have won? I think he's won 3 already or 2?
I think he's only won 2, and if he wins the last 2, he'll have 4. I think.
Because then he had this idol one time that he lost. Because I think it's gone. Carolyn and Mike both got 1. And Joe had 1 early, I think. Maybe he had 2. And then I know Tyler has 1. Carolyn has another. Either way, though, let's talk about this.
I'm looking at it right now. Mike has won 3 immunities. So if he wins the last 2, that would tie him for first with 5, right? Between him, Colby, Terry, and Tom Westman?
Yeah, no one's won 6.
No one's won 6, and I think all of those people have won 5. I think Terry won 5. I could.
And how many of those
That's
are
my
winning
campaign
there?
Saturday night. What?
How many of those people have won the game?
Tom Westman. That was it.
That was it. All right, let's get into this now, because this is what we kind of want to see. Is Mike lose? Let's say at 5. Let's say he loses at 5. What can he do to survive?
He's really just got to turn it on to. He's really got to turn it on to Carolyn somehow, because I know, or he has to try to. I think him and Carolyn could say they're going to work together, and he's just really got to somehow spin it where it's like Carolyn's going to win this game. If she gets to the end, she's more of a threat than me to win. Like he has to somehow play it up where Carolyn's more of a threat to win than he is. Because I don't think Sierra, Will, or Rodney would go home in that situation. I think they hold all the power.
Yeah, I think this would be tough. And this is why I want to see it so badly, because you love when players back them, they get into a corner and then they get out somehow. It's fun to see. I think you have to go the other way with it, and you have to get Carolyn on your side and say, look, Carolyn, if they vote me out and you don't win final immunity, there's no way you go to the final 3. And that's very real. That sounds very real to Carolyn.
It's Spencer's argument to Tony.
Right, which I think was great, and he at least was at 4, so that's a little bit easier to pull that at 4, because now you're just trying to force a tie and go make fire. Now that there's 5 people, and this is again why I like a final 2 better. I think the stuff that happens at 4 is really cool when there's a final 2. Mm-hmm. At 5, even if Mike convinces Carolyn say, yeah, he's right, that's true. If I don't win final immunity, then I'm toast. If Mike's not around. So, and then I guess what he'd have to do is he'd have to make that same pitch to Sierra. Say, look, people don't really like Carolyn. I know the whole jury doesn't like Carolyn. You're likable. If I go and Carolyn wins immunity, you're gone. Tell Sierra the same thing. Pretty much say, if you don't win final immunity and I'm not there, you're gone. You have to tell each Sierra and Carolyn that, and then throw all your votes at Rodney. 3 on Rodney. They'll both vote Mike. And I think that's how you do it. And then unless Rodney wins immunity, and then I guess you throw him at Will, which
a lot harder to convince. A lot harder to convince in that situation.
Yeah.
I think if Rodney wins immunity, I think you almost have to say, let's vote out Carolyn to Rodney and Will instead, and say Carolyn could beat you guys. I think that you guys could. I think Rodney, at least you could beat me. All he has to really do is talk up Rodney's ego and say that Carolyn is going to beat anyone. Or even he could throw Sierra under the bus and say Sierra could beat anyone if Rodney wins, that is. Because I don't see how they get rid of Will now. Nobody's going to go for that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either. Do you think there's any chance that he can pull that?
If Mike doesn't win immunity at Final 5, I'm going to sit there and go, Mike's going to go home and me and Will have been wrong the whole time until I see someone's name come up. Like that, like I really don't believe that he can pull that. And I would be really impressed if he did, and I'd be really entertained, and that would be something great from the finale. And I think if that happens and Mike somehow wins, then this was an incredibly strong season. Like, I really do, because if Mike can somehow pull a strategic move that gets the numbers turned on, like, that smug group, especially after last week and that really entertaining pagonging, even though the boot order sucked, I mean, man, this could be a really strong season with something like that.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been entertaining. Just the people left, it's kind of leaving us like, damn, we have Mike, and that's kind of it. Even Carolyn, we just haven't seen enough of her about, like, we don't know her. I don't feel like we don't hear anything about her personal life. And usually with winners, you get kind of some insight to like who they are as a person. We hear Mike, he's celibate, he's a hard worker, he doesn't drink. You know, we get all this insight from Mike's life, and we just haven't gotten that with Carolyn. So I'm just, you know, let's now take this. Let's say Mike wins at 4. Pretty sure Carolyn goes here, and this is what we both think is going to happen. So it's final 4. Mike doesn't win immunity. How in the hell does he pull this one?
I don't think he does. If it gets to final 4 and Carolyn's gone, and it's Sierra, Rodney, and Will, he's not convincing them, because Sierra's got exactly what she wanted. Rodney's got exactly what he wanted, and Will's not going to change. He's going to go to the end with Rodney. So I don't think he does. I don't think he can pull it in that situation. If it gets to final 4 and he loses, I don't think he can make it.
Okay. I think, yeah, there's no – why would anyone vote to give Mike a chance? I mean, it wouldn't make any sense.
Sierra's not going to do it, and that's his closest ally out there. And Sierra's not going to do it. The only way he can do it is if somehow he makes Rodney paranoid and makes Rodney think that Sierra could easily beat him. And Rodney's like, yo, I'm going to go to the end and I'm going to fight it out with Mike. But I don't see that happening because, you know, I just – they all got what they wanted. If Mike loses and they go to the final 3, Sierra, Rodney, Will.
Okay. Let's look at now another scenario. Any way Carolyn and Mike both survived the first vote?
Damn. I don't know. I mean, that would have to be again, Rodney wins immunity, or not Rodney. You'd have to get something crazy like Will or Sierra win immunity. And then Carolyn and Mike try to team up together and then try to get Sierra to vote out Rodney. That would be really the only way, but I don't think they can. I really don't think they both make it.
Yeah, and the thing about this is, let's say you're Mike, and let's say you have immunity. Do you want to keep Carolyn around? You probably don't. So, again, that doesn't really make much sense either, because if you're sitting there and you have immunity around your neck and everyone's targeting Carolyn, it's like, you know, at 4 anyway, you're going to be number 1 target, whether Carolyn's there or not. So there's just no reason to keep her. And then if you're Carolyn with the idol, I guess if Mike makes that pitch, look, if I'm gone, you're gone next if you don't win immunity. But that's not a very good sell to Carolyn, because she has immunity around her neck. She obviously can win. And having Mike at final 3 is pretty much suicide anyway. So I just don't know. We're pretty much coming up blank here on how Mike can lose an immunity and get to the final 3.
Yeah, I don't see how it happens.
I guess it would just have to be Sierra, Carolyn, and Mike. It's just not a strong argument. It's just not that strong of an argument. And you can't, because what if they get together, Sierra and Carolyn compare notes? Wait, we're each the next biggest threat? We both can't both be the second biggest threat.
Yeah.
It just
I don't see it. I think Mike's going to end up winning. I think he's going to have to pull like a Fabio and win the last couple here and go to the end. I think that's really what it comes down to. If it doesn't happen, that would be so entertaining, but I think that's what's exactly going to happen. I think it's going to be a little predictable.
What about Will? Is there any way Mike can get to Will? Any way?
No, he's got to go through Rodney to get to Will. And I don't think Rodney would work with Mike. So I think the only way that Will changes his mind is if Rodney changes his mind. So I don't think it happens. I think Rodney and Will are locked in together.
Okay. Man, it's going to be – it's kind of a bummer that we're coming up – we're like just not figuring out any way that this can happen. So you're – how sure are you that Mike wins both immunities and goes to the end?
like 95.
Yeah.
Like I'm
I'd
pretty
say-
I'm about as confident as I can be that Mike's going to the end here.
And because we just broke down a way he loses immunity, he basically goes home every time. That it's like 95 that he has to win both.
Now, so we're thinking that the most likely final three is going to be Mike, Rodney, and Will.
Yeah.
Any way Rodney can beat Mike? But let's go through the jury votes. Like, do you think that there's any way that Rodney can beat Mike?
Start from the top with Haley. Haley throws it to Mike, probably 100%.
I don't know, though, because I'm not going to say 100% on that because in Haley's exit interview, she said Rodney and Shireen are the types of people she would vote for. Maybe because of their stories, stuff like that. I don't think Haley would completely write it off. I think Haley's one who goes to the end and sits there and listens and like actually bases her decision on like what she hears at the final tribal. So if Rodney makes a good enough argument of why he could win, I could see Haley vote for Rodney.
Yeah, I think if they weren't all at Ponderosa hanging out, I feel like that could very well be true. But because Mike, Shireen, and Jen really bonded when they were all at the bottom. And then supposedly Joe and Mike had this big bromance that might have rivaled Joaquin in Rodney's bromance that we didn't really see on TV because it's not as funny and exciting. But supposedly they had a really good relationship. So if you're Haley and you're at Ponderosa with Joe, Jen, Shireen, and all they're talking about is like, yeah, we're rooting for Mike, kind of hard to just get that out of your head.
Yeah, it is. And I think Jen and Joe are 100% going to vote for Mike in this situation. But I could see Haley going the other way because, I feel like Haley's a little bit stronger, a little more independent. She always talks about how she wants to be like a lawyer. Like that was her whole thing on the show. And I could see Haley surprising us and voting for Rodney completely out of nowhere and not us not seeing it.
Okay.
And I think Shireen is another. I'm kind of trying to make it a little more interesting here if there is ever a possibility because Shireen, Joe, and Jen are all 100% going to vote for Mike.
Well, Shireen, we think that maybe she'll vote Rodney to ensure that Rodney gets second place and that Will doesn't, because that's a very Survivor, like it's kind of this new move that I think Vetus was the first one to do it. He didn't want Jarvis getting second place, so he threw a vote at Monica. And then I think who did we see? I don't know, where else did we see that? Maybe.
Well, I know it happened in Redemption Island. I don't know if Ralph actually did it on purpose, but he voted for Philip, and he was the only one who voted for Philip, and Natalie ended up getting third.
Okay.
Not sure if it was on purpose or not. I think it happened in One World. I think Sabrina got a vote and Chelsea got none because the guys really didn't like Chelsea.
I feel like in the Redemption one, it would have been made more sense if someone voted Natalie, so to ensure Philip would get third place.
That's true.
That would make more sense.
But my thing here is Dan. I don't know if you watched Dan's Ponderosa, but Dan really hates Mike. Like Dan did not get over the whole Mike betraying him with the family letter thing. Like he didn't get over it at all. And I think he made it so apparent that I think they all know that Dan's not going to vote for Mike and probably going to vote for Rodney. And I think that kind of offsets Shireen voting for Rodney just to give him second because I think that she already knows Dan's going to vote there.
Yeah, that's fair. That makes sense.
So Dan votes Rodney.
It'd be so funny if like Haley votes Rodney, Dan votes Rodney, Shireen thinks they're voting Mike. She wants to get Rodney second place. She throws her vote at Rodney. Right there, you got three Rodney votes, and then you have
Tyler or Carolyn.
Carolyn on the jury. Tyler is up in the air. This isn't happening though. This is just.
It's not going to happen, but it is a little interesting to think about because Rodney, all of Rodney's alliance mates, who are like he had an alliance with everybody who is on the jury except for Joe, Jen, and well, he didn't have it with the first four people voted off, but people who are going now, he had an alliance with. And if there's 8 people on this jury, he had an alliance with Tyler. He had an alliance with Dan. He had an alliance with Carolyn. He had an alliance with Will and Sierra. And at this point, he hasn't really screwed anybody over because everybody's been screwed over either by Carolyn screwed over Tyler. Dan got screwed over by Carolyn playing the idol. Carolyn got screwed over first. So, like, she might not be as bitter. I think Carolyn's warming up to Mike a little bit more, but it's not like Rodney has gone out of his way to screw people over in, like, a Hansian way. Instead, he's been there and he's been pretty loyal. So maybe people do like Rodney more and they do give him some votes. Granted, I don't think it's going to happen, but it could happen.
Yeah, I don't think Tyler would actually vote Rodney. Just he seems just like a gamer, smart dude. If you're looking at what Mike gets, and we think Mike's getting to the final three, and this is the hypothetical that it's Mike, Will, and Rodney. Tyler's voting Mike. Just someone to just like outplay easily. He wins. Outwit. I mean, it seems like Rodney kind of was in the majority and kind of just coasted. I mean, there's Mike. Who's going to be able to put together a better argument here? Let's say Tyler is on the fence. Rodney couldn't form a sentence last episode. He's not going to be able to argue with Mike, who Mike has been on the bottom for so long. It's a major underdog story. I think any people on the fence, there shouldn't be that many because Mike's such a runaway. But after hearing their arguments, they're gonna fall on Mike's side.
Yeah, I think that's really what the season comes down to. And that whole Rodney not being able to form a sentence might have been a foreshadow by the editors that was kind of funny. And maybe he goes to the final tribal and he just sounds like an idiot the whole time. And then, he doesn't get any votes. And maybe it was a little bit closer going into the final tribal than we really knew. Like a lot more people were on the fence and they were actually maybe leaning towards Rodney because he was aligned with them. And we just never saw it from the editing perspective. And then he acts like an idiot at the final tribal and he loses like 8 or 7-1 or something, So.
Yeah. Do you want to get into any final threes that don't involve Mike?
The only other one I could see is if Mike loses and Carolyn wins, and it ends up being like Carolyn, Rodney, and Will. Or I guess Carolyn would have to be in there. And I think Rodney could actually beat Carolyn. I think Sierra could beat Carolyn. Like, that's how off I am on Carolyn. I don't feel like people really liked Carolyn that much.
She has had, the idol play was pretty good last week.
Which got her some points. It did get her some points.
But if we just go over this, like let's say Mike goes out at 5, Carolyn wins at 4. Who's going home? It's probably Sierra.
Yeah, because Rodney and Will, I feel like are locked in with a 2. They're 2 votes right there. Like I don't feel like Rodney and Will are going to split up.
And then it's Carolyn,
Rodney and Will.
And then we've already worked out. There's no way Carolyn and Mike both make it to the end.
Yeah.
Unless that's what we want to see. It's just like it doesn't really make sense with the numbers. It just can't really happen. So it would be Carolyn. It'd be Carolyn, Rodney, and Will. And then I don't know. Do you want to go through it? Is it worth doing it? I think Carolyn would win.
I think
about Jen, Joe, and Shireen.
Yeah, they're all gonna vote. They're all gonna vote Carolyn. I feel like. I feel like even Tyler would vote Carolyn because I think he respects the game enough.
Yeah, right. And I think same with Shireen. I don't think Shireen likes Carolyn personally, but I think Shireen can, if she puts the story in her head, look how Carolyn and Tyler, they kind of floated and they kind of took the majority. She played her idol, saved herself, got Dan out. She won a few immunities. So I could see Shireen, even though it was clear that Shireen did not like Carolyn. I think Shireen would still put that aside, vote for Carolyn. Tyler votes Carolyn.
Mike votes Carolyn.
Mike votes Carolyn.
Carolyn already has 5. Like Sierra could go either way. She could probably go Rodney.
Sierra probably goes Carolyn, though. I think Sierra doesn't like Rodney.
No. So, yeah, I don't think Sierra – yeah. Sierra we just haven't heard enough from. I mean, if Sierra won this game, I'd be a little disappointed. But I'd go back and rewatch the season and probably not be that mad because I really don't – I do like Sierra, and I'm kind of mad we didn't see more of her because I think that if she was going to be in the final 3 and it was going to be like her, Rodney, and Mike – that could be like a really good final 3 too. I think we just haven't seen enough of Sierra because Mike and Rodney have overshadowed her.
Yeah. So those are the scenarios, I guess. I don't think final 2 is really in question. I think it's going to be a final 3. Do you want to get into comments on the recap video, or we have comments on this one already?
Let's go to some of the comments on the recap video just to go through it, and then we'll get there. I'm trying to think where we ended up. Oh, well, I guess a great place to start is – well, no, let's start here. Survivor Lover asks, if Mike wins, who would be a better winner, Mike Tyson or Todd? We didn't talk about this one, right?
No. Wait, Mike Tyson?
Mike,
Oh,
Todd, or Tyson. There we go. I guess we should do it that way because Mike Tyson is a yeah, that's a little confusing.
I was like, wait a second, what's going on here?
Who would you say is a better winner, Mike Tyson or Todd? Mike Tyson or Todd?
Todd.
I think Todd too.
It can't be Tyson. Third try. I don't care how good of a game. It's your third try. It's just not. It's not as good of a win. It just isn't. Todd. I mean, when you need to win the final 3 immunities, it says more about like your will to fight and all this stuff, and you're hardworking and you never quit. But it doesn't really say much about like your survival gameplay. It's just kind of like you went to every vote, not really threatened.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This is like where my bias, I show that like I don't just hate on Boston Rob, because I never liked Boston Rob really when he played. Like I get that he's great for the show, but I never really liked him, and I always thought he was overrated. He plays 4 times, probably plays the best game ever in Redemption Island, and I don't give him any credit. I love Tyson. Like I absolutely love Tyson. And he played 3 times before he won. So I'm the same on both of them. They don't deserve the credit that they get because it took them a bunch of tries to actually win the game. Now, with Todd versus Mike, my whole thing is with Mike, he was really never in trouble. Like you said, like there was never a time where like Mike had his back. Like, well, Mike always had to win immunities, but I'm saying he never went to tribal and had to change the numbers to ensure he didn't go home. Like Mike was always safe at tribal because he either had his hidden idol or he won immunity. And then if he wins the next 2, that's exactly what happened. You remember Todd, when they voted out James, if James plays an idol, Todd goes home. That's balls, and that's putting yourself in with a risk to go home. And I think that's just why Todd controlled China from beginning to end and probably played one of the best games that the show's seen. Mike hasn't done that. Mike didn't control anything the whole time. He just won a bunch of immunities.
Yeah, I totally agreed. And China's like, I know it's your favorite season. It's one of my favorite seasons. Might be a little biased there as well, but you got to give that one to Todd.
Yeah. Let's see. Jennifer Myatt, I don't think that a woman can win since Jeff Probst said it was a great season and a great winner, and he never likes female winners. Then she says, am I wrong?
I feel like that we can say this now that we've seen so much of the season, but if you're going to say from, before seeing an episode and you read that quote from Jeff saying this is a great season, one of the best winners ever, there's no reason why that couldn't be a woman. Just because it happens to be a man now, and that's what we're pretty sure it's Mike, it's like, yeah, that doesn't prove anything. It's one. I mean, could you imagine him saying before Philippines, this was a great season, maybe had one of the best winners? I could totally see him saying that. I mean, Denise went to every final tribal council.
He might have said that. I just don't remember because I didn't pay that close attention. What I do know, and yes, this is because of Russell Hantz, but 2 of Jeff's favorite seasons are Samoa and Heroes versus Villains. Both of them had female winners. And yeah, I know Russell ate up all the airtime, but both of them had female winners, and he said they were 2 of his favorite seasons. So take it for what you will.
Yeah, I'm not saying Jeff is not biased at all. I think he loves the alpha males. Thinks they're great for the show. Definitely roots for them. But to say that he couldn't say this about a season with a female winner is like,
that's what I'm saying.
And bringing it up now, it's like, yeah, but Mike has pretty much got it. So
yeah.
It doesn't really prove anything.
Let's see. Squire Whitney. If Kimmy and Jeff get voted back, then half of Australia cast will have come back. The sad part is Kel still has not returned. That's kind of funny. And then she goes on to say, and I think Mike benefited greatly from Joe's immunity run. If their plan really was to take out Mike, the second Joe was gone.
Well, I'm going to read that last part again. And I think Mike benefited greatly from Joe's immunity run. Plan was to take out Mike the second Joe was gone. Yeah, honestly, that's why I think he could have tried to help keep Joe around a little longer. I mean, Joe lost in immunity. Tyler won. That was when there was, 10 people left? 9 people left?
Joe went home at 10.
Okay. So I feel like if you're Mike, you would benefit from having Joe hang around a little longer. It's not like he's going to rattle off 7 immunities in a row. You're going to have another opportunity to vote him out. That was my thinking with Mike, because he even said in his Mike's plan, this was a secret scene. I posted it, I think, on the recap video on episode, I don't know, one of those after them, like episode 8 or 9, something around there. his secret scene said, I got to get Joe out. He's the biggest threat. Then I become the biggest threat, and I'm just going to need to win all the immunities here on out. That was his plan, and honestly, like, he's putting his plan into action right now. I know he had the idol, but hey,
there's no strategy there, but it's just because nobody else on this season. It's almost like when Colby went on that immunity run in Australia. Look at who he was playing against. He didn't have to compete against anyone. Like, yeah, Alicia was strong, but Alicia was like Rodney, where she wasn't a challenge threat. Well, like, so this season just happened to have weaker people, and Mike got to be up against them, and of course he's going to win. And maybe that is a good plan because he knew that he could win all the challenges against everybody.
Yeah, it's probably not the best idea because you're gonna come to a challenge where it just doesn't, unless you're just. But no one's like won every challenge. I mean, there are challenges test different parts. Some test memory, some test strength, balance, endurance, just hand-eye. There's so many things challenge can test. You can't rely on winning every single one. And if he wins the next two here and out, sure, yeah, pat him on the back, tip your hat. He wins. He deserves it. But I don't think you shouldn't go into Survivor with that strategy. Yeah, I'm just gonna win all the immunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's stupid as hell. All right. What Emeliman said, this was the guy who told us to call him something, and I can't remember what he said.
Wait, I have Jake the Snake up right here.
Do you have Jake the Snake?
I say Carolyn gets voted out.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think we forgot one of his comments last time, so we got to make sure to read it this time. I say Carolyn gets voted. Carolyn gets voted out at Final 5. Sierra gets voted out at Final 4. And the final 3 is Mike, Rodney, and Will. Mike wins, and Shireen votes Rodney, so Will does not get second place. We agree with most of that, except we're starting to think that the Dan hate for Mike is so clear and obvious that Shireen knows that Dan's going to vote Rodney, so she also votes Mike along with everyone else. So still Rodney will get second. It's just we think probably Shireen will vote Mike.
Yeah. Now eat some whatever his name is. Email Amanaskamana. Email.
Well,
I don't know. I think that
Michael Freeney. You're skipping over Michael Freeney. I never knew there was a guy named Jarvis on the show. How'd he do? He's been on 2 seasons. He played in season 1 and season 27. So check him out. I don't want to ruin anything.
It's because his name is Jervis, and you keep saying Jarvis. He's complimenting your pronunciation of Jervis.
Oh, really?
It's Jervis. Yeah, it's Gervase. Jervis.
Yeah, but it's not like Aaron. It's Aaron. Like some names are just.
No, but his name. If you listen to any season, they call him Jervis. His name is Jerv or Jervis, not Jarv.
I just thought it was like a spelling thing because I know a guy.
No,
I know a guy named. He goes by Jared, but it's spelled Gerard. Gerard, but he goes by Jared.
Yeah. No, it's Jervis. I met him. That's the only Survivor I ever met. It's Jervis.
Okay. Go ahead then with the other comments.
Okay. I think that this will happen in the final. Mike wins immunity, Carolyn gets voted out. Then Sierra wins immunity, and Mike gets voted out, and Sierra wins. If that happened, I might be kind of disappointed just because we didn't see anything of Sierra. Or, like, for the final 3 to be Sierra, Mike, and Rodney, it's just like, why – or not Mike. I'm sorry. Sierra, Rodney, and Will. Why do we not see more of them? I saw so much of Mike the entire time then.
Yeah, if Rodney – I feel like Rodney – based on his gameplay, could have an argument to win, but they've not painted a picture of Rodney as a winner at all. They have portrayed him in the most negative light possible. In the context of the game, they could have showed, I mean, I know he's always saying stuff. I got the numbers. I'm always rolling with numbers. Like they could have portrayed Rodney as a winner. I think if they needed to.
Yeah, I agree. I think they definitely could have.
They could spin the wow. I didn't go on one reward. Man, he's such a fighter. Didn't get to go on reward, but he still made it to the end. Still fought through it instead of like complaining about it. I mean, I don't know. It'd be a tough job for the editors, but you can do magical things in an editing room.
Oh yeah. They could have definitely made Rodney look like a hero.
And
the
so
guy
I
who
think
overcame everything.
Right.
Easily.
In Sierra, I know the question was about Sierra. I don't think they could have done that with Sierra too. We just haven't seen enough of it.
Yeah. Although Natalie White didn't have much of an arc. If you still watch the most, she didn't have much of an arc. So I could still see that with Sierra.
Yeah, and we do have this returning season coming up, which was the thing with Samoa. It was pretty much an advertisement for Heroes vs. Villains. So, because they knew when they were editing Samoa, I think they knew that Russell had gotten to the end in Heroes vs. Villains. So they were really trying to build up Russell.
Yeah, because they knew that we were going to be watching 2 straight seasons of Russell. That's true.
But like Mike's on this ballot right now, so like maybe Mike goes home and this is a big second chance thing. It would be weird. It really would be.
Yeah, and then that would suck because next season would be the Mike show again.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, what's the next comment? Because I'm all.
I just watched the casting videos for the second chance, and I love Jeff. Here are people I think getting back: Steven, Spencer, Shane, Jeff, Joe, Shireen, Vitas. For the women, Shireen Kelly, Cass, Tasha, Sierra, PG. She listed Shireen as a man and a woman there. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe something's up with Shireen.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably do another season 31 thing once the cast is revealed on Wednesday, and we'll say, we should have gotten this. We already did a podcast on it, so I don't think we need to talk about, season 31 much.
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit too in our finale recap. Because we will have to – I mean, that's going to be the biggest news of the reunion, so we're going to have to talk about that a little bit.
Right. Corey Bananas asks, who's Steel Punch going to lust over now? And Steel Punch replies, let's go, Will. Not a surprise there.
Nope.
You go ahead.
Vanessa Cunha. It would have been 4-2 if Dan didn't play his advantage because Sierra voted for Carolyn. Also, I think Carolyn would have played her idol either way. I saw her facial expression when Dan mentioned her being a huge threat. I agree with you guys that Mike and Carolyn should have voted off Rodney or Sierra instead of Dan. Yeah, in Dan's exit interview, he said that he thought Carolyn was like the way Carolyn reacted to it, and in hindsight, he thought that she was going to play it no matter what, because she was acting weird pretty much the whole day.
But if you're in that situation and you think Carolyn's going to play your idol, why throw 2 more votes at her? Why don't you throw both your votes at Sierra? And then it's then it would be 2 on Sierra, 2 on Dan, and then 3 on Carolyn that are just nulled. Right?
Well, like I said though, he was saying that it was because he never knew that she had the idol. But she was acting weird the whole time. So once he found out that she was going to play it, he pretty much said that he should have known that she was going to play it the whole time. Had he known she had an idol, he would have known she was going to play it the whole freaking time.
Right, I guess, he didn't know he had an idol.
Yeah.
If he had known Sierra was definitely with him, it would have been very cool to see Dan throw 2 votes at Sierra, and then Carolyn and Mike both write down Dan, and then Sierra, Rodney, Will all wrote down Carolyn, and then it's a tie between Sierra and Dan with Carolyn, Mike. Then it would just be a 2-2. And I don't know, it'd probably maybe go to Rocks. I have no idea what would happen, but it would have been really cool to see.
It would have been interesting. Yeah, it's a shame that Carolyn kept her idol hidden. How could she? The way they're reacting in the preview for this week.
Okay. All right. Solomon Belay has some awards to give out. I think this might be a little premature, though, because we still got the finale left. There's like almost three hours. I don't know how much of the reunion is going to be about season 30, to be honest, but there's still a lot left to go. But
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that this is going to be the most. I think this reunion is going to be the one in most recent memory that is going to be the most about the season that just aired, because they're going to try to keep you until 10:58, and I think they're going to announce the cast right at the very end because they want to keep people waiting and watching because they know people are going to watch for it, and this is how they're going to get the reunion to get better viewing.
I hope that's the case. I hope they don't.
I think they're going to talk a lot about Worlds Apart this time.
I hope so, because it was a fun season. There's lots to talk about.
But just looking at Solomon's moments here.
Yeah, I haven't read them yet, so I'm excited to read them. We have best moment. Jen plays her idol and votes out Kelly. No color all the way. Best moment. I disagree with this one. I think the best moment is when Mike doesn't pay for his letter from home. I know he goes back on it, but they went to ad break, and then you're thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? I mean, I think that was such a unique moment of Survivor. Using someone's family letters to give yourself an advantage in the game, it was just cool. It was new. We hadn't seen something like that before, and I know we didn't pull the trigger all the way, but I got to give it to that. That was my favorite moment from this season.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back after the finale actually airs. And I think, like, after we watch up to the reunion, during the reunion, I think in the commercial breaks, I'm going to jot down, like, a bunch of best moment, worst moment, funniest moment, all that stuff. Because I do think that for a season that's been complained about by a lot of people, this was a really entertaining season of Survivor. Like, very entertaining. I mean, there's so many moments that could be best moment. But the reason that people are really complaining about this season is because of the next thing he has written there. You want to read that?
Worst moment, Will's outburst on Shireen. Just discussing. Okay. There's two ways to look at this. One is like from like a human being in real life, just like what was the worst thing someone did on the show. And yeah, it's obviously Will's, but if you're looking at it as a moment for the show, and I'm not saying one is correct or not, but if you're looking at this from like, if you're a Survivor production and you see this go down, you're thrilled. Yeah. You want drama. You want people yelling at each other. You want personal attacks. You want people getting heated. You want people going on the internet complaining. It's boost up your show. So if this was the worst berating in the history of the show, isn't that a great moment? Not great for Will, but it meant Shireen raises her arm. Maybe that's the best moment. That was pretty cool too.
You just turned into a robot, and it was scary, and I didn't hear anything you said.
Okay.
There we go. Say whatever you just said again. Now you sound clear.
I was just saying how it's if you're a Survivor producer and everyone is.
No, we got that. It was when you started to say like this is the best moment, and then you said something about Shireen, and I couldn't hear you.
Oh, and Shireen put her arm up like this.
Oh yeah, that was the best moment of the show, probably. I would say this season.
That was huge. And so, can you call Will's lash out on Shireen like the worst part? Like, no, that created so much drama for the show, and I don't think you can call that like if I'm going worst moment. It's gonna be something that just makes me annoyed, angry. Trying to think. There's so many San Juan Sir. I'm having trouble thinking of one. I'm like, okay.
I think we should just do it. Like I said, I think we should both go over this after the finale, and really like think about it a little bit instead of just like jump into it, because I think there's a lot of moments that you go to. I get your whole point, but the way I look at this is almost how Brandon Hance in Caramoan. A lot of people were like, oh, it's dramatic, it's cool. That was a really like great episode of that was a really crazy episode of Survivor. Thought that was the worst episode the show's ever had in the history of the show because it was stupid. It was disgusting. They brought back a psychopath to put on a show that so many people have applied for and wanted to be on. They knew he was going to be insane, and that's why they put him there. And then he goes absolutely nuts. They have everybody vote him off, and it was a completely disgusting, like just stupid situation. Yeah, it caused drama, but that's probably my least favorite episode the show has ever had. Like ever, and it's my least favorite moment of the whole show. And you could say for production, they're sitting there like, yay, this is great, people are going to be talking about it. After that happened, I actually sat there and I was like, if they keep going down this route, Survivor, I'm going to be done soon, because that was horrible. Like that was the worst thing I've ever seen. That was stupid. So I get where he's coming from with his Will's outburst on Shireen being the worst moment.
Yeah, I hear that too, and I just want to bring up a difference. I think casting someone who's mentally unstable for the purpose of getting drama and pretty much exploiting a mental disability, I mean, that's how it came off to me at least. That's pretty messed up, and that's really bad. That's low. This from Will. This was Will being Will. I mean, I don't. It's hard to say like, yeah, this was terrible for a terrible moment. It didn't look good for Will. But Shireen got him back in that very same episode with a slow, dramatic hand raise. I think when I think of the worst moment, I don't think of like the worst thing someone did. That's a different superlative for the season. You can pick the worst action by somebody, or you can pick the worst kind of moment. I think worst moment. I think like something lame.
Nina.
Yeah, Nina being upset about not invited to go skating to me. I think that's the worst. That was just boring and lame. Just tears for no reason. There's probably more that we'll think of. So
yeah, unplug your headphones, plug them back in. And then the funniest moment, Dan gets extra vote, and then Dan's extra vote gets him voted out. Can't stop laughing. I agree, that's really funny. Player you like.
Turtle trumps that. Like,
Oh yeah, there. That's you. That's Jesus, man.
if I'm ever sad, I just think about that turtle, man. It's the funniest darn thing.
Player you'd like to see win, Rodney. Be a funny surprise. Player you wouldn't want to see win, Will, because he didn't do shit in the game. Overall season grade B+. I like the season, but too much, Mike.
Yeah, B+ sounds about right so far.
Yeah, and I would say Will is really the only one. If he won in this finale, I'd be like, that was just terrible editing. That was a dumb season. We didn't get to see why he would win it all. But Will has no chance of winning, so we don't have to even worry about that. You want to go to this
video, right?
Yeah, let's go to this video.
Get it going.
Go Jimmy O at the bottom here. He's got his predictions, and he says, let's see, 5th place Carolyn, 4th place Rodney, 3rd place Will, 2nd place Sierra, 1st place Mike. Yeah, that was my prediction. I think Rodney and Sierra are the only ones who can switch it up. So, yeah, that's, not far off. I think 1st, 3rd, and 5th are really, really close.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rodney gets to the finals. What's the thinking behind Rodney going before Sierra at 4? Is it because there's a fire making and Sierra wins the fire making?
The only reason I had it was because I knew, like, the way Mike and Rodney have been at each other the entire time, it would be like a situation where Mike just gets rid of Rodney because he doesn't want Rodney to be sitting there at the end and doesn't think Rodney deserves to be sitting there at the end. And it's more like personal.
But if you're going to do that for anyone, wouldn't you do that for Will?
Yeah, probably. But Mike and Will haven't had as much of a feud the entire season like Mike and Rodney have.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. If anything, I see it. Mike standing up. The best competitor should be here. It's a load of crap, but he knows he can win anyway. Kind of build his case. I gave Sierra that chance to make a fire when I could have written her name down. I see something like that happening.
Yeah, I can see that. That would be cool.
I have Sierra at 4. I mean, I think it's more likely Sierra goes at 4. Because if you're sitting next to someone, you'd much rather sit next to Rodney than Sierra, even though Rodney may have played a better game.
Yeah, I agree. And then he goes on to say, if I'm not listening live for the finale recap, just want to say these recaps predictions have been great to listen to throughout the season. Are you planning on doing this next season? Thank you very much, Jimmy O. And yeah, I'm pretty sure we are, right? We'll just probably be doing West Coast time next year instead of East Coast time.
Why?
Because I'm moving. So hopefully.
Why can't you watch the feed?
I don't want to watch the crappy feed. Only you should have to do that.
What?
I don't want to watch
I've been doing that all season.
The crappy feed. I've been watching in HD. It's so much better in HD. I don't want to watch the crappy feed.
You know what? I actually think now that you're so invested into this, and once you move out here and like Twitter's blowing up and you have the ability to watch it at 5 and it's the finale or it's the premiere, you're gonna succumb to watching the shitty live stream.
I can't do it. I go on every message board I can, like an hour before the show, and I'm like, okay, what's everybody thinking? Because I can't help myself. Like I seriously have like a strange addiction to the show. So
when it's on at 5, you're saying you can't wait till 8?
When I know that my parents are sitting at home watching it and they're gonna know who's voted off before I do, that's not right. That's
exactly wrong. So that's what I'm saying. We're gonna be doing the East Coast stream, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever.
All right, here we go. We got Steel Punch coming in with some awards here. This should be good, hopefully. Oh man, they're not all Dan. I thought that'd be funny. Like most strategic, most physical.
He's got another comment though that says, "I was trolling you the whole time. I can't stand Dan."
I was just being funny. Were you? I wonder if he actually does know Dan, because if you know someone, it's kind of hard. Like, it's kind of hard to root against them, no matter what they're doing on the show. So I could kind of see that. Anyway, here are his awards. Most comical, Dan. Yeah, which could be true. I mean, he said so many absurd things. Best strategist, Carolyn. Challenge dominator, Mike. Biggest bitch, Shireen. Biggest blindside, Vince. Best idol play, Carolyn voting out Dan. Most annoying, Dan. Overall season, A-. most similar to Cook Islands. I would say Panama.
He says I meant most similar to Panama, not Cook Islands. They were right next to each other. He says that in his next comment. I completely agree with that. I think that this season and Panama have so many parallels, like so many. And if Mike were to lose, it would be Panama because that would just be Mike as Terry trying to overcome everything, and then he ends up losing. It would be exactly Panama.
Yeah, but there's no Aris here.
Rodney, the calm, collected yoga instructor who controls it from the beginning. It's Rodney.
Calm, cool, collective.
That's it. He's got the 3 C's.
All right. We have Jimmy O. In a weird way, it would be an impressive sales pitch to the jury for Rodney on how impressive it is for a seemingly fit guy like Rodney to get to the end without winning any immunity challenge, also without the help of an immunity idol. He could argue that he had to use his brains over his run to get to the end of the game. I know I'm writing fan fiction right now, but what do you guys think? I think if this, like I said earlier, if Rodney ended up winning this season, we would have seen a very different Rodney on this show because I don't think he's a bad Survivor player by any means. I think he's a little pouty sometimes, a little annoying, sure, but I think there are more annoying players out there. And also, being on the island with anyone, they get annoying.
Yeah, I would compare, going back to the Panama comparisons, I think Rodney's like Shane. He's fun to watch. He's good TV. And then he just goes off on his fits, and he can't help it. Like, that's just the person he is. He gets annoyed, he gets mad, and he can't help it. But if he won the game, it would be like, well, he's not a terrible player. He was in the alliance that he needed to be in the entire time to really make a strong case to get to the end. He didn't budge from his alliance. He didn't flip on anyone. He just had his fits, and he had his moments. Like, that's really all Rodney did. I think Rodney's actually a really good Survivor player because he didn't win any challenges. He looks like a meathead whose only thing that he's going to be able to do is win challenges. And he didn't win a single one, and he's still sitting here in the finale. And he could be sitting there at the final Tribal Council without ever winning a challenge at all. And I don't think it would be because he was a GOAT. I think it would be because he aligned with the right people, and his name never came up.
Yeah, it's true. And again, that could have happened. Except just like I said, the editing. It's just like he's been portrayed just as this just goofball, kind of pouty brat. So,
yeah.
Richard Marquardt, I don't know how to say it. Any chance we see a bitter jury and Sierra wins against Mike and Will/Rodney? I don't see that. Not against Mike. Mike has, again, look at the first 4 people on the jury. And I know Haley might not be 100% towards Mike, but Joe, Jen, Shireen are all on Team Mike. And then I guess Dan isn't getting a vote, but Tyler won't be bitter. Carolyn.
I think the only ones who are going to be bitter are Dan and maybe Carolyn, but it seems like Carolyn got over the auction thing. So I think Dan's the only one.
Yeah, Carolyn is not going to be bitter. Tyler's not going to be bitter. I don't think that's there's a strong case for that.
Yeah, because Mike's a hero. They've shown him as a hero. If they were showing him as a villain, I could see it happening. If it was Sierra versus Rodney and Will, I could see a bitter jury saying, you know what, let's give it to Sierra because we don't like Rodney. And I don't even think that would be a bitter jury. They might just say Sierra played a better game than Rodney. But with Mike, I don't see it happening because I don't think people actually dislike Mike. I think Mike's a very liked person on this season.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you there. You think this is from Camden Ewan? You think Rodney will win anything this last episode?
Nope.
Maybe if they do a reward and someone has to pick one to take, like let's say, because now we're down to 5, so they can't split it up into teams. If it's an individual reward challenge and someone wins, they may take Rodney. That's what he might get. I don't think he wins any immunities, unless I don't know. I don't think he does.
Yeah, I don't think he wins. I don't think he wins, and I think one of the main talking points at the reunion, I think that one of the comebacks from a commercial is going to be Rodney struggling in challenges, and then everybody's going to be making fun of Rodney, and they're going to be like, Rodney, what'd you think? He's going to be like, you know what, Jeff? And then he's just going to go on his rant and his, why he was
strategy.
cranky.
That was strategy.
Yeah. The whole time, he knew it. He knew it the whole time. He could have won all those challenges. He didn't want to.
Okay, we have Mike Toll. Would you rank this season as a top 10 season? Huge fan from Australia.
We're global.
Howdy, mate.
Yeah, well, that was terrible, but we're global.
Yeah. It's if Mike doesn't win both immunities and somehow makes it to the end and pulls something really cool, maybe it's top 10. Maybe it's definitely top half. I think right now. I think there's a lot of exciting TV for this season.
I have this whole thing that like this whole theory with the internet right now, and maybe it's just because I don't know, stupid, but I have this whole theory where it's like we are in the time of like great TV, and like people go on and they complain about like Game of Thrones, they complain about Breaking Bad, they complain about Mad Men, they complain about a show like Bloodline, like they have to complain. Like they're watching something great and they sit there and go, that episode sucked because this guy said the instead of a. Like that's why this episode was terrible, and it's always stupid petty arguments. And I feel like what's going to happen is like right now everybody's a little mad at this season, but when we look back on this season, this is going to be one of the better seasons of this show. I think people just have to be bitter now because nobody goes on the internet to say how great something is. Everybody wants to go on the internet to say what their problem is because nobody in real life wants to listen to them. So I feel like this season's actually really, really good. And, you know, so I think it's okay. I think that it might end up in the top half. I don't know if it'll crack my top 10. My top 9 are pretty solid. So maybe.
Yeah, it will have to stand some kind of test of time. You know, it really will. And we still have 2 more hours of it, which can certainly change a lot. But I think on a rewatch, this will be a fun one. I think there's a lot of fun, lots of fun to be had, lots of entertaining. Even though the winner again is kind of predictable. I think it was episodes 4 and 5 after that where it was kind of like I'm on Mike train. I think he's winning. Yeah. So that's kind of lame. I hear that argument, but if it's a cool story, and I mean, again, they can't do anything to change the boot order. It's just how it is. And I think despite like we said, it was probably the best Pagong ever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Alrighty, we will see you guys for the finale on Wednesday. Looking forward to it. It's always a good day when a new Survivor winner will be crowned.
Yep. So
Anything
see you
else?
then. No, we'll see you then. Vote for Savage. Vote for Jim Rice.